Wait, I'm Big Bong, right?
You're Big Mom.
You're Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna stand behind you.
All right. Hey everyone, Sarah Nova again, and Bailey and I this week are going to do this together. We are talking about I don't know what to call it. I mean, it's a special bike in a lot of ways, but it's also a bike that completely is off the radar for a lot of people. It's a oh man, I forget what year this is. This is
It's 81.
81 KZ1300 Kawasaki. It is a 1300 cc as the name suggests. 6-cylinder motorcycle. Now, if you have been following us along, or you know anything about this era of bikes, you know there was also a Honda CBX. We did a video about one. We had one in the shop here. Also a 6-cylinder motorcycle, and there was also the Benelli 750 and 900 say 6-cylinder motorcycles. So there's not alone in being a 6-cylinder across the frame motorcycle, but it was kind of still a novelty at this time. So in '79, this one just came out. The same year that the CBX came out, believe it or not. I actually didn't know that. I sort of thought this was a copycat bike, but they came out exactly the same year. But they went about things differently. The Honda was a double overhead cam, but liquid cooled, short stroke, uh, across the frame six, sort of like more of a standard sport bike kind of fare. This is liquid cooled, um, and also double F head cam, but liquid cooled. And weirdly about this, it's actually a long stroke motor. It's so the stroke is longer than the bore. They did that to keep it narrow. What that does is it limits the revs it can do, which to me is a little counterintuitive because the more cylinders you add, the more revs you're able to do because all the various moving parts are smaller and lighter. But what that also translates to is torque. So this thing has a ton of torque compared to like the CBX. It only has about 15 more horsepower than the CBX, which to me is not a lot given it's got 200 cc's or 300 cc's more. But still, that was a trade-off they made. That was the decision they made. As I said, liquid cooled. You see no finning on it. It looks a lot more modern. But you actually don't see this motor as much as you do on the CBX. It's upright and it's sitting higher. The CBX is sort of down and canted forwards. And you have a radiator covering the front, and you have a huge gas tank, which is normally on here, that it covers the rest of it. So you don't kind of really see it. But yeah, another interesting thing is on the CBX, the early ones, they had 6 individual carburetors. This one has 3 carbs that are really two. You want to talk about this, Bailey?
Yeah,
Okay.
so they've got 3 Makunis on here, and basically what they did was they took one carb body and put 2 separate carburetors in it. Essentially, you've got separate circuits for each cylinder, but it's in one carb body. Like, check this out. Like, bet you never seen this before.
I love that. I love that. That's an
Here,
alien
so
thing.
shit. So, you've got one diaphragm here controlling 2 slides. It's a CV carburetor, just like anything else. But it's got one diaphragm controlling 2 carburetor slides. Can you hold that?
Hmm.
And if you look through the back, here, that's where the slides are. And through the back, you got 2 throats, and each have their respective, pilot jet, main jet.
And it's got one float bowl, one float, right?
Yeah. So, and then it shares a float bowl and a float.
But
And
individual jets for each circuit. So
yeah,
it's essentially 2 carburetors meshed into one body,
yeah.
which is kind of cool. Kind of a cool way to do it. Way easier to get on and off than the CBX ones, right?
God. Yeah, I was able to do this carb job in about 2 hours, where CBX, you know, I don't know. I don't have metrics on that. But,
8 hours.
yeah, something like that.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
so this bike is really cool. It's in great shape. This was originally fully faired. The guy who bought it, um, he bought it like this. The original owner took the fairing off, put some aftermarket blinkers on. The thing runs great once I cleaned the carbs and everything, and put new plugs and plug caps on it. The thing fired right up. It runs beautiful. It's just huffing smoke. I did a leak down on it. It's got, I think 5% leak down on either cylinder. So the motor's in really great shape. We just think that either the valve stem seals are a little dry rotted and leaking, or maybe the oil ring on the piston is stuck
You
and
might have
just not,
one stuck ring, something
or
like
one
that.
stuck ring. So the customer brought it here basically wanting a top end anyway. He kind of wants it to be pretty bulletproof. So he's game to have us rebuild the whole top end, and we're really excited about that. I was able to find the parts, and they weren't like insanely expensive, which is kind of great. I When I first started working on this bike, I wasn't aware of how many of these they actually made. Like they made them for 10 years. I had no idea really. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, they started off as the naked model, and then went into it ended its life as a Kawasaki Voyager, which is their big kind of
Yeah,
uh,
it's their
Goldwing copy, or
tour.
big tourer. So a lot of people have seen them and not realized what's underneath here because it's all buried under all that plastic. Um, yeah, this is kind of cool. We don't see a ton of these. I feel like we've had one of them in the shop, and for much more minor work. So it's kind of fun to have a customer who, I mean, this bike honestly could be ridden safely with no problems, but he really wants it to be perfect, and that's kind of fun to chase that kind of stuff, to chase that level of tuning on something. So we're gonna have some fun with it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. What
stay
else?
tuned.
What's that? Oh yeah, yeah. The bike weight. I forget how much it weighs, but it's got to be at least 700 pounds. So you got honking for its time, fork tubes, and double discs. For the early 80s, this isn't really high tech, other than perhaps the motor. You're
Some
still
say this handled better than the CBX, though. I
really,
don't know why, and
yeah,
I don't know if that's really true, but I've heard some accounts that this handled a little bit better in the corners. I
interesting.
don't think there's any real differences in the types of suspension they were using. The frame is remarkably similar,
Yeah,
other than the fact that the CBX used the motor as a stressed member of the
right,
frame.
right.
This one's got it's a cradle frame, so I don't
Yeah,
know. It's interesting.
I would say this is definitely heavier than the CBX. It's also a
Hmm.
shaft drive,
Yep.
whereas CBX was a chain drive. So it's different. This was out of the box built as a touring bike, whereas the CBX had designs as a sport bike, and it became a touring bike because that was pretty much the only logical use of something like that. Um, but yeah, it's cool. What a wild time in motorcycling. This was, by this time you had, well, this is liquid cooled obviously, but you had newer frames on the horizon. But I think they weren't here yet at this point. So this is just before we get the Honda Interceptor, and soon after that the GSXR 750, which really changed the design of sport bikes and stuff like that. So you have these monster motors just smashed into pretty archaic at this point chassis, and they did what they could do, remarkably well considering what they were. So yeah, I can't wait to test ride this one.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. And Bailey, being the Goldwing aficionado that she is, may become a convert when she rides one of these. Let's see. Ooh, you got the
Good.
yeah, cool. Yeah, we'll have to get some pictures of it with the
The
tank
customer
on it.
has a new seat cover, the original seat. He'll probably do away with the
What? That's
alligator skin.
snake
Although,
skin. Come on, alligator
yeah,
skin.
it's pretty attractive. I like it. The tank's over there. If you want to get a look at that.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty clean, which is
Yeah,
nice. So yeah, if you have experience with these things, chime into the comments.
yeah.
We love to hear about it.
And if you have one of these and you want us to do stuff to it, please let us. We are so grateful for the customers that want to put in the time and money to keep these machines alive.
Yeah, yeah, cool. Well, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.